We are devoted to keeping you amused and involved on a weekly basis. So without further ado, let's get this weekend started with a memorable collection of stories. Story 1. Last and final edit. I have now left this job after far too much hogwash, including me having to deal with constant panic attacks as well as severe depression and anxiety stemming from the constant, terrible people I have to deal with every day. I have since moved on to a new job, and as of me quitting on July 12, 2019, nothing was done against this manager that I know of. I do still have friends working there, for the time being, seeing as many of us are quitting in droves who will keep me up to date, but as of now I know nothing. Sorry to make it a lame ending with no outcome, but I needed to get out of that place before I jumped off a cliff and put a bullet in my head. Original post. My office manager has a giant, massive HR case being built against her because she's been pulling some royally shady smeg. Last year, some of us have been having issues with system access at my job. Thankfully, not me. It's a known issue, and it's been getting fixed here and there, but then it rears its ugly head again. Anyway, about 5 or 6 months ago, a friend of mine in another department started losing access. My office manager, who is my boss's boss, she runs the whole friggin' Megillah, tells this person to go home for the day since you don't have system access, and specifically told that it wouldn't be held against her. So, what the hell? It's not like she can do her job anyway, right? She goes home. This happens about 8 more times where she comes to work and her systems don't work and she's told to go home. Now fast forward to about 2 weeks before the year ends. The girl who's been sent home gets called over by her manager and told she has to sign a final written warning. When asked why, she's told that because she has used up all of her FMLA and sick leave. She said that it's not possible and asked for proof before signing the document. Her manager pulls up all the times and days it was used, and lo and behold, it was every single time she was told to go home because of system access. This is, of course, illegal as smeg. My coworker did not choose to go home. She did not choose to use her FMLA and sick leave. My office manager did that for her. So just about 3 weeks ago, my coworker got called into our office manager's office and was told that she needed to give up her medical records, also illegal as frack. She declined and told her she will not do that and is still not signing the final written warning. She then proceeded to call HR with all of this, who then tells her, "It's funny you should bring this to our attention because you're not the only one who called us about things like this happening with her. We're building a case against her as we speak. Smeg's about to go down and I'm fracking here for it. I hate my job and I've actively been looking for a new one, but part of me wants to stick around and see if they tote her butt off to jail or the massive smeg show that will happen when she's fired." Edit. Woo boy, this got blown out of proportion. I promise everyone if I'm around for the aftermath, I will update somehow. No clue how long this case has been being built by HR, and no clue how long it will take to come to fruition. But if I'm here for it, and it does, I'll definitely do something to update everyone who's interested. Edit 2. Electric Boogaloo. Nothing so far, folks. I think this case might take longer to build than you or I am even thinking. Trust me when I say I want to see this come to fruition just as much as you guys do. Edit 3. Still nothing, guys. I'm starting to think nothing's going to come out of it. Or if it is, it's not going to be anytime soon. I'll post a new thread in some online forum somewhere when and if it happens, providing I still work there. Ooh, I'm glad things are being taken into consideration, but it just so unsatisfying. This person is still drawing a paycheck and still pulling off stuff like this. Other people are losing their jobs over this. Meanwhile, all HR is doing is building a case. Is there any recourse for these people that are losing work and losing time with this company because of this at all? Story 2. A year ago, my family member, 26, discovers that his fiancée, 29, of 7 years, who he has 2 children with, had been having an affair with his younger brother, who just turned 18. His brother was living in his house rent-free at the time as well, so his fiancée left him for his brother and had a fling with him for a couple months. The younger brother is basically homeless now, jumping from friend to friend to crash at their houses while working at a job that he makes minimum wage at, $7.25, while she's still living under her ex-fiancé's roof. She then decided she wanted to work things out with her ex-fiancé, so they got back together and decided to reconcile the relationship, which left the younger brother furious. Shortly after that, she finds out she's pregnant, but does not know which brother is the father. Her fiancé said he would raise the baby as his own even if it was not his, so she decides to keep the baby. This makes the younger brother more furious because she aborted the child before this baby that she knew was the younger brother. So the younger brother verbally attacks her for aborting the child and keeping this one because there's a chance it is her fiancé's. She is unemployed during this time, so her fiancé is paying for all of the expenses. 9 months later, still unemployed. So she has the baby, and it ends up being the younger brother's child, and they all try to do co-parenting. The baby is 3 months old now, and my family member's fiancé left him for his younger brother again. Edit. Thanks for all the silver and gold. Edit. I edited the fiancé and fiancé errors I had in the initial post and added spaces to break up the whole post. Thank you. After all this, we tried to hang out with him and our other friends at our house to get his mind off the entire situation, and he invited her over, did not ask us if it was okay or even mention it. She just showed up, knowing damn well everyone at our house does not want her there. He told us that if he is okay with hanging out with her, then we should also be okay with hanging out with her. Honestly, I've been stuck on this thread all day, and this is clearly the best one. What the frack? The older brother is an idiot, and the younger one is a jerkwad. I know that the perspective of this is in the eye of the storyteller, but this woman seems to prefer younger people as intimate partners, and she's kind of relying on the older one for stability and the younger one for fun. I mean, there's got to be a lot to this deeper on the surface, but I don't know what that is. What do you think? Story 3. My cousin has been together with his wife for 14 years and has had a girlfriend for just as long. Neither of them knew about each other. He got caught because of an image on Facebook. His wife's sister posted a family picture which my cousin was in and got recognized by his girlfriend's sister's acquaintance. He got away with that for 14 years. I'm always amazed when I hear stories like this. Like, how the hell do you have time to lead 2 lives and not have them mix? I barely have enough time to see my boyfriend. No idea how I could take on another relationship. And how do you respond when they want to meet your friends and family? A friend of mine had 2 kids with a guy who worked in oil fields. He worked in 3-month-long shifts where he would travel to another state, then come home for 3 months, then travel again. They were together 7 years, married for 5, when she was doing laundry and found a second cell phone in his pants. Turns out he had been married for 10 years to another woman who he also had kids with in his work state. She decided to wait it out, filed for annulment on the basis that he was married to someone else, and filed for custody of their kids while he was gone for work. Once she had it all worked out, she called the first wife and told her that not only had he cheated on her, he married someone else and fathered 2 other kids. The husband angrily drove for 11 hours back to her state to find the house empty. Unfortunately for her, Her not husband anymore found her and beat her within an inch of her life, blaming her for the first wife leaving him. She was in the hospital for several months, and he's now in prison. Damn it, I wish he wouldn't have found her. Frack that guy. That is awful. Just no reason at all. This guy was completely a narcissist if he thought there was no blame. Also, the main question, these people that are reporting multiple families, what do they do? I would love to have that kind of a job where I had I had possible second family type of income, type of money. I'm sure we'd all like that. I wouldn't have a second family. I don't have a first family. I don't need a second one either. Story 1. So my dad and mom got divorced before I was 1, and he would randomly come around once every few years to pretend to be a dad for a week or two, then disappear again. This is important to the story. Anyways, I have always sucked at and hated math. We got a homework assignment. I think I was in the first grade. We were working on 0 times whatever number. I was super excited because I understood it and knew I would get all the questions right. The whole worksheet was just questions asking 0 times another number was. My father made me show him the worksheet when I was finished and made me change every damn answer because, wow, you're stupid. Did you pay attention at all in class? I explained to the teacher when I turned it in and still got a fracking 0. Edited to add, wow, thank you for all the comments showing so much love and support. I kind of feel like that meme that mentions thinking about you having a fairly normal childhood until you tell somebody else about it and they freak out and you realize it wasn't normal at all. Seriously, though, to those of you kind-hearted human beings and parents out there who have broken the cycle, you're amazing. You keep doing what you're doing. You're an awesome human being, and I love you. To those of you out there who have had similar experiences to this, and to those of you who, like me, have experienced way worse, I feel you. Thank you for sharing your experiences. I know life really fracking sucks sometimes. Okay, a lot of the time for some of us. And I know that there's times where you just want to beat your head against the wall because it seems like Groundhog Day. Every day is the same and it's just horrible. But it does and will get better. Just remember that the night is always darkest just before dawn. I'm adding to this one too because the more I think about it, the more it irritates me. When I was about 7 or so, my mother met my sister's father and got married to him. Now, growing up, I grew up very poor. I would help out my mother and my father when he was around with jobs. Things like landscaping work and such to earn money to buy my own school supplies, toys, etc. My sister's dad had a lot of money, so we didn't struggle for once the year or so we were married. They were married. When I was little, I was very much into Pokemon. I had tons of cards, books, figures, games, you name it. I even had the yellow version game for the Game Boy Color, but in Japanese. It was an exclusive release from Japan. Not to mention every rare ultra card you can think of, or ultra rare card you can think of. A lot of it was stuff I had bought myself, or was a very, very rare gift given by family. My sister's dad ended up being extremely religious and decided that Pikachu is the devil and threw away every single bit of Pokemon stuff one day while I was at school. Everything. Even my fracking Pokemon washcloth. Now, the real kicker of the story, of course, he and my mother got divorced and he retained custody of my sister on weekends. There was a few times where I had gone over to his house to watch my sister or whatever, and literally her entire mother-humping room was done in Pokemon. She had Pokemon everything. And her dad has a lot of money, so I mean, she had fancy Pokemon everything, the newest everything. The cherry on top? was that my sister barely knew what Pokemon was. We are 7 years apart. I still wonder if he did that. I know it's extremely juvenile, but it still ticks me off. And if he did that, I know it's extreme. I think that last part. I still wonder if he did that. I know it's extremely, very weird. Little bit of a weird grammar thing at the end. But how does he go from the leap to deciding Pikachu is the devil to saying it's all right for the daughter, is for the sister? Is he saying the sister is beyond hope and is going to hell, so might as well let her indulge in all the Pokemon she wants? Or is it something else? Story 2. Kindergarten. Playing with a kid in the sandbox. Was a fairly drizzly day. We're making a castle and there's a puddle a few feet from us. He wants to dig a moat around the castle, and I say, sure. So he just kind of jams his hand in the dirt and starts pulling, making way too huge of a channel, which he immediately realizes is going to destroy our castle. So I say, quick, build a dam to stop the water. He freezes, stares at me with wide eyes and mouth agape before running off. I think this is strange, but okay, whatever. I save the castle, so I go back to digging when the teacher runs up and grabs me and says to go to time out. To which I obviously protest and say, no, I didn't do anything. She then immediately says she knows I said a bad word and to not try and lie, to which I am again confused and say I did not. After a few back and forths of her trying to pull me away by the arm and me rather violently resisting, it occurs to her to actually ask what had happened. I will explain the story. I still remember her face kind of dropping, realizing the other little smeg thought I said damn instead of damn, and then immediately ratting on me. Tries to say, well, maybe we use a different word, to which I again vehemently protest against because no, that is the correct word for such a situation, and that's just how it works, and it's his fault for not knowing the word, etc., until she finally gives in and explains to the kid that I did not swear and that no one likes tattletales. I am in my 30s and on the other side of the country, and I still remember this as the very instance in which I gazed upon my fellow man and wept, for he is stupid. This story is like an allegory for all of humanity. I love it. Reminds me of one of my painful childhood memories. Back in grade school many years ago, my very religious teacher believed that darn was basically just another way of saying damn, making it equally blasphemous. I was not aware of this. So the young Turk remarked in anger one day that he had just tripped on the darn rug. Miss Holier Than Thou says, Turk, what did you just say? I had a reputation for being the good kid, the one who never gets in trouble, the one all the teachers love. So my brain quickly scrambled to process the last few minutes. What have I done? What did I say? Then it hit me. She must have thought I said, damn rug. So I hurriedly said, no, I would never say that. I said, darn. Turk McGill, stop this instant. Completely panicked that she wasn't understanding me, I shouted, no, I'm not saying that other word. I'm saying darn, darn. It's been a long time, but I think she actually put her hands over her ears and sent me to the principal's office. The first time for such a thing. I tearfully explained what happened. And then I said, darn, but she thought I said the other word, but I didn't. I just said, darn. I said, darn, bawling. He politely explained that Miss Holier Than Thou feels that is a bad word, and he told me to go back to class and apologize to her and not to use that word again. Oh, I feel so much pressure having to go through these scripts and having to swap out words on the fly for words that are not going to trigger the algorithm and everything. I sort of feel the pressure this kid is feeling after figuring out that he cannot even say darn frustrating. But growing up, I think that's really going to backfire after the kid grows up and probably launch a whole thing in the other direction where he's just going to say all the swear words. Story 3. The first day of 8th grade, my best friend and friend group informed me that they would no longer be my friend. To this day, 20 years later, I still don't understand how or why things ended up that way. I can only guess because I was the shy nerd of the group and they were trying to fit in with the cool crowd. Regardless, it was a miserable experience that left me with quite a few trust issues. Edit. Wow, I never expected this to blow up like it did. Thank you for all the comments and my first awards. OMG, I had almost the exact same thing happen to me, only it was a few months into 8th grade, not the first day. I totally understand your struggle. That smeg fracking hurt. It's been close to 20 years for me too, but I'll never forget the anxiety I felt at school every single day trying to have a social life. Nor will I forget the pain of being an awkward 13-year-old girl and losing my BFF since 3rd grade, all because she decided to listen to the pretty girls who told her she'd be more popular if she didn't hang out with me. We remained in the same friend circle to some extent through high school, though she and I were never quite as close as before. Icing on the cake? A couple years ago, I found out that during our senior year, while she had a long-term boyfriend, she cheated on him and smashed his best friend, the guy I was madly in love with at the time. Curse you, Jen. Ooh, that hurts. It seems like the girl who dumped the BFF just learned to be callous. It doesn't sound like she was any more empathetic at all. I wonder if there was anything more that happened later on. I wonder if this original person just forgot about her and just lived her life and got past high school politics. I hope she did. Story 1. When I was 19, I worked at a summer camp as a sort of supervisor of a group of counselors. There was an event coming up, and I had wanted to take a day off in order to attend. My boss insisted that it wasn't possible for me to take the day off, so I decided to call in sick because it ticked me off. Now, knowing that I would need a note from my physician, I actually went to the doctor the following day. My normal doctor was not in, and a nurse practitioner was filling in. She did a pretty thorough exam, poking and prodding my stomach and asking if it hurt, etc. I probably reacted in a couple of areas trying to sell my illness. At this point, she recommends that I visit the ER because she believes I may have appendicitis. This means a better doctor's note, right? I'm in the ER. My entire family is there at this point. They're having me drink the barium milkshakes to prepare for imaging to see if I need to have an appendectomy. I have to drink 4 of these things over an hour. I'm on my last one, and the ER doc comes in and tells me he's going to have the surgeon come in to chat, knowing that they're going to take these pictures and everything will be fine. I'm not concerned. Well, the surgeon comes in after I finish the last drink. He says that he can see I'm in some pain. Still selling it, to which I explained that we're going to take some pictures to see if it's legit, which will turn up negative. He then explains that he doesn't need the pictures and we should just go to surgery now. 10 years later, I'm appendix-free and to this day, still haven't told my family. Too long didn't read, I faked being sick to get back at my boss, and now I don't have an appendix. Well, there could be other stuff that you would have regretted losing in order just to get a day off. Again, it kind of speaks to our kind of work life and medical system that we have to have this type of subterfuge just to get a day off. Glad you don't have to worry about an appendix bursting on you, though. Story 2. Not myself, but my dad used to have a serious drinking problem. One night when I was in high school, I was driving home from work, and the town I lived in was very small. I ended up driving behind a truck that I was pretty certain was my dad's. Now, I should add that I was driving with my brights on because one of my headlights was messed up and it wouldn't turn on without having the brights on. Well, I'm driving home thinking how funny it is that I ended up behind my dad when he slowed down and came to a complete stop at a curve where I couldn't get around him. I was very confused. He got out of his car and started screaming at me from his car. He's calling me all sorts of names and grabs a Frosty from Wendy's and throws it at my car. He ended up throwing it so hard it dented the middle of my hood. I was absolutely terrified. He had gotten mad like this before, and I seriously had no idea what I had done to tick him off. He starts walking towards my car, and even though he was a good distance away, I could see the look of rage in his eyes. I was physically shaken, so much so that I couldn't even manage to cry because I was so terrified. Turns out, my dad had gotten into an argument with a guy in the Wendy's parking lot who had a similar car, and since I had my brights on, he couldn't tell it was me, not to mention he was probably drunk. When he got to my door, I assume he planned on grabbing the dude out. He just stopped, frozen. He got back in his truck and drove away. When I got home, he walked into his room, grabbed a bag, and left to stay in a hotel and start getting help. He couldn't look me or my mother in the eye. Wow. I don't know if this is regret or not. I don't know. I don't think this could be qualified as regret. It sounds like this guy reached his rock bottom and just really started climbing back up. If all it took was something of a dented hood, thankfully this person wasn't injured in the process, then it's kind of a win here. What do you think? Story 3. Didn't say goodbye to my mom the last time I ever saw her. Wished in my head she'd perish. Only because I was ticked off she and my brother were going to Fiji without me, and I was stuck with having to go to work. But I didn't realize it was because her radiation therapy hadn't worked, and she was pretty much going home to pass away. I had no idea it had progressed to that stage, so when she came to hug me, I turned away, so she gave me a side hug. Well, that was the best she could do, and she was pretty weak at that stage. I still feel like the smeggiest person alive thinking about her face that morning and her little bony frame pressed up against me. Edit. Thanks for the nice comments, guys. I didn't realize anyone was going to take any interest in my story. I explained below a bit more about the situation in a reply to someone. I also should have explained that I guess my mom didn't tell me herself because probably she was a super positive kind of person. In the last couple of months before she passed, she was still telling me her plans about what she was going to be doing. In her words, when I get better. She had plans for where she was going to go forward with her career. She had a psychology degree but worked with disabled people in a respite center. It didn't seem like she could pass away to me, really. That added to the shock, I guess. I have that. My mom has not had any real heavy physical problems or any sickness or anything. But I always make sure I tell her I love her and that I'm going to miss her when I go away after I visit. So it's something that I'm kind of aware of as everyone is getting on in years. That would just be awful to have that kind of response after doing that kind of thing to your mom. Story 4. Punched a cop in the nose and broke it. It was instinctual after having a fracking horrible day, coupled with some creepy fracker following me for 4 blocks. I thought it was the creeper, not the cop I hit, when I felt a heavy hand on my shoulder. The cop was freaking out on the ground, and his partner pulled his pistol on me, yelling to put my hands up. I had to explain why that mistake happened. Worked okay, but had to go to the police station to explain my story. Found out the cop was about to ask me if I noticed my wallet was about to fall out of my pocket. Ends up with the broken-nosed cop saying it was okay and that it would be let go if I bought him the burgers he was on his way to get. His grin was comedy gold. Ended up buying burgers for the whole department. That was expensive. Edit. Yeah, I was really lucky. This happened when I was 18, and I'm 21 now. If it helps, white as can be. For a broke college student, over $250 for burgers is a bit steep. I'm just happy it all ended on a positive note. My parents don't know, and probably never will. Thank the heavens or whatever other deity. Let's go with Odin. Thanks, Odin. Story 5. I got angry at someone who was born and proceeded to treat them like smeg for almost 8 years. I was 8 or something when my cousin was born. When he got older, he was always over here. I don't know why I hated my little cousin so much. He was a great kid. I just had this rage. It would manifest in doing tiny little things to hurt him, maybe trip him, or would just destroy him repeatedly in video games or something. I also used to glare at him a lot when he wasn't looking. When he was about 8, and I was 16 or so, I had to watch him for a little bit, and he wanted to go outside and play with his stupid little golf set, but all I wanted to do was stay in the house and play video games. He dragged me out. He gave me a turn, and I accidentally hit him on the head when I went to swing. And by accidentally, I mean completely on purpose, but looked like it was an accident. So I hit him. He broke down crying, had a small gash on his head. I took him into the house and cleaned his cut, and indifferent to his crying, I just coldly said, "It was an accident." Then he replies through tears, "It's okay. I know you wouldn't hit me on purpose." That's when it hit me. Almost like I hit him. That's when I realized what a fracking smeggy human being I had been. I treated him like he was fracking trash. What the frack was I doing? Why the frack was I so angry? After that, it just went away, and I'd say that we've been pretty much best friends since then. Story 1. Not mine, but my family's. In the summer, me and my gaggle of cousins, just loved to go over to my grandparents' house to go swimming. And while just about everything else occasionally got shot down, I don't think anyone ever refused to take the kids swimming, at least while the weather was nice. In fact, they'd all encourage it, with the adults taking turns watching the kids, even calling each other to get more kids over and hurling pool toys in and otherwise making sure we had a grand old time. And it was really weird that pretty much every time we wanted to go swimming, we always got to, you know? It wasn't until many, many years later that it finally clicked. I'd started exercising regularly, and the gym I went to had a pool. I hopped in and did some laps, and as I was sitting there afterwards, completely exhausted, I realized that swimming is frickin' tiring. And then I thought about all those times we'd been swimming and, after we spent most of the day splashing around and swimming and whatnot, I remember we were usually pretty spent and spent the rest of the day either napping or lying in front of the TV, too exhausted to start anything. And then it clicked. They didn't care so much if we had fun. They found an easy, efficient way to burn off all our rambunctious energy under the guise of letting us do what we wanted and have fun. It was all a conspiracy. This is exactly why I take my 3-year-old to the park now. He just runs around in the sun like a chicken with his head cut off for an hour, and then by the time we got home, he's ready to curl up and go to sleep for a while. The same thing happened to someone I know. I knew their family for quite a while, and I would take their kid to the park every weekend, almost without fail. And that's kind of what happened. He would run around, have a great old time, and then he would just be very chill when he got home. Very cagey. Story 2. I'm going to cheat and recount my mom's awesome moment. I was suspicious of the tooth fairy, and so decided to test things. I took my tooth in its folded tissue, and after going to sleep, took it out from under my pillow, where Mom and I had placed it, and put it in my pocket instead. Dun dun dun! The next morning, I wake up, cagily reach into my pocket, find my gold coin wrapped up instead of the tooth, and in awe, say to Mom, "The tooth fairy's real!" Mom smiles and nods. Years later, Mom recounted the other side of the story. She sneaks into my room in the dark, feels under my pillow, doesn't find the tooth. She checks down the side of the bed, on the floor, nothing. Finally, in desperation, she picks me up and puts me into her bed, shuts my door, turns the light on, and proceeds to tear my bed apart looking for it. Finally, she gets suspicious. She looks in my drawer, through my bedside shelf, and takes down all my books. Nothing. Finally, she thinks, if I was testing the tooth fairy, where would I hide my tooth? She returns to me, reaches into my pocket, finds the tooth, and makes the appropriate rage comic face. Remakes my bed, tidies up my whole room, puts me back, and finally, exhausted but incredibly smug, goes to sleep, looking forward to my face the next morning. Man, and I thought the tooth fairy was really clever when she gave me exactly how much my mother said it would cost to rent The Return of Jafar. Your mother was a dang good tooth fairy. I would argue there's another strategy here. I would argue that she would leave the room an entire mess and just claim, what did you do with the tooth? If the kid confessed to it and said the tooth fairy must be really thorough to just search through everything to find the tooth. I think that would have been a little funnier, but this is good too. Story 3. When my kids were toddlers, I was traveling on business and happened to be in the hometown of a good friend. Call him Bob. I took Bob, his wife, who I didn't know very well, and their baby out to dinner in my rental car. On the way there, the baby, as they often do, liked the feeling of the moving car and didn't like it when the car stopped. So he would cry every time we came up to a stoplight. The wife was in new mom mode and would seriously lose it whenever the baby cried. Somehow, she didn't catch on to the relation between the crying and the car. To try to lighten the mood, I told her, he'll stop in just a minute. She, of course, utterly went off on me, which naturally caused her baby to cry all the more. How do I know what her baby needs? Where do I get off telling her what her baby's going to do? As a man, I can't possibly have the sacred bond between a mother and her baby, etc., etc. So for the rest of the drive, I would say, start crying every time we came to a stop, and stop crying every time we started up again, and he would. Freaked her right the hell out. I think she thought I was using witchcraft or had occult baby psychic powers or something. The mom sounds obnoxious. Did he even try afterwards to clue her in as to what the magic secret was? Or was he kind of holding his own against an obnoxious mother? Maybe later, when she started driving her kid around, she figured it out for herself, hopefully. Story 4. When I was little, I never ate broccoli. Then one day, the broccoli had melted Munster cheese on top. Awesome. I love cheese. I ate up the cheesy broccoli for a week or two. Then the cheese went away as suddenly as it appeared. I thought. That's odd. For about another week, I would melt the cheese on the broccoli in the microwave for myself. Then that got to be a hassle, and the broccoli really tasted fine without it. So I stopped. Presto! I had started eating broccoli. It wasn't until years later that I realized that had been the plan all along. In my parents' house, it's common to customize your dinner plate this way, including raiding the fridge for other food or doing additional prep work, like slicing cheese. Also, no one starts eating or sits down at the same time. Customization time starts when the main dinner is cooked, and each person starts eating whenever their customizations are done. I didn't realize how unusual this was until the first time I brought a girlfriend home to visit, and it freaked her the hell out. I wouldn't eat cooked vegetables. I still would rather not, less prepped and nice crunchy vegetables, but I loved to think broccoli were trees, so I would try to stand them up and pretend to be a giraffe. Kind of a strange story, I know, but you reminded me of it. Story 5. I have 2 dessert stories about my dad. There are 4 of us, and when it was time for ice cream, he'd always shout out, "Smallest first," which would tick me off because I was the oldest and wanted my ice cream first. After a few weeks of sulking after this happened, he told me that he wasn't referring to age, but the size of the portion. One night he told us before dinner that he had a new dessert for us to try, and it was called zilch. My siblings and I were positively ecstatic that we were going to have zilch for dessert. After dinner, he gave us an empty bowl and told us to enjoy zilch. We didn't believe him, but he made us look up zilch in the dictionary and we all started crying. He said learning vocabulary was important and that if we read for half an hour, we'd get dessert, which was goody-goody gumdrops ice cream. Yum! So we read pretty intensely. Story 6. This is still in the planning phase, but hopefully by the end of the summer, our plan will come together. We recently found a secret room in our house. Cool, huh? It's actually a pocket of attic space that you access through a panel in the back of the upstairs hall closet. It's a big space, 17 by 12 feet with a steep vaulted ceiling, and it runs right behind my son's room. We didn't tell him about it. Our plan is to send him to his grandparents' house one weekend so that we can turn the space into a video game room. We have to put down a floor and hang drywall or some other wall treatment. AC and cable are already running to the general area, so it will have that too. The kicker is that we're going to put a full-size door to it from his room. When he gets home, we're just going to sit back and wait for him to discover it. Luckiest 8-year-old ever. Stop. Do not put in a full-size door. Rather, put in a hidden door or an 8-year-old size door, one only he and his friends will know about and be able to use. That will be really cool. I kind of agree with making it a hidden door, something they can access, but don't make it an 8-year-old size door, especially if there's something that kids are going to hang out in. Because if something happens, something gets rambunctious, something breaks, you're going to need access to it. And I would rather it be a hidden door, really. I think that's fair. I do like having that strategy so he can discover it. That would be cool. Story 1. Another one, this time from my dad. We're coming off a plane at Lagos Airport. It's 1992. I'm about 10 years old. So I wander around the baggage hall and find in a secluded corner a service lift with a bloody great hole cut out of the door. It's cordoned off so you can't use it. I asked my dad about it. A cleaner had been using the service lift one night after a shift to go back up to the departure area where he could stash his trolley, etc. Lift breaks down between floors. The emergency help button does nothing. This is Nigeria, remember. And of course, it's way before mobile phones were even introduced. He pounds and pounds on the interior of the lift, but it's in a quiet bit of the airport where no one goes. He's not scheduled to be on shift the next day. His colleagues come in and assume the trolley has been stolen as the cupboard is open, and it's not there. They carry on. When they try to use the service lift, it doesn't work. They don't hear their colleague as he's trapped closer to the floor below than the one above. Trapped cleaner has now been in there 18 hours or so. He's desperate. He drinks the water from the mop bucket, still pounding on the lift, hoping someone will come. 24 hours pass and his family comes to the airport to find out where he is. Their village has no telephone, at least not one that works. Colleagues haven't seen him. Maybe he's gone into the city to spend his paycheck given to him that morning. Eventually, it's been nearly 48 hours. Trapped man is feeling sick from drinking mop bucket water. He's had to use another bucket as a toilet. The smell is unbearable. A technician arrives to try to fix the broken lift. He's saved. Or not. The tech manages to get the lift back down to the ground floor, but the doors won't open. They try praying, jimmying, nothing's budging them. I think they meant prying there, it says praying. They even removed the motors and tried by hand. Eventually, they realize they'll have to cut him out. So they fire up the angle grinder and cut a 2-foot by 2-foot hole in the door. Sparks flying everywhere. That's just the outer skin. They can't get the angle grinder further to the inner door. A welded torch comes out, a gas axe or whatever you want to call it. Of course, this is flinging hot metal into the lift. The cleaner is absolutely scared smegless. He's been in the dark for 48 hours, and now someone is flinging hot metal at him. Eventually, they make a hole all the way through. He crawls out, collapses, and is taken away in an ambulance. He survived, but did not return to his job at the airport. The broken lift was still there until we left in 1995. When I returned on business in 2001, it had been repaired. I still think about the poor guy whenever I get in a lift. That is one heck of a story. I can't imagine being stuck for 48 hours in a lift and being so desperate that I'm drinking the fracking mop water to survive or feel better from the thirst. This sounds like a very, very tense and very claustrophobic movie. I just could not believe. I'm glad this person survived. But just all the fail-safes to try and alert someone that you're there just don't work at all. I wonder if this had gotten any different outcome if everybody had cell phones, if it took place years later. Story 2. I was a cabin crew during a turnaround from Dubai, UAE to Muscat, Oman, and back again. We're on ground in Muscat and hear from ground staff to take extra care of a passenger who is about to board. She was an English lady in her 50s, as you can imagine, well turned out, but unassuming all the same. But she looked completely shaken when she boarded. So what happened was she had checked in her luggage and had gone on to security. She placed her trolley bag on the conveyor belt, and she went ahead through the metal detector and was waiting on the other side for her bag. Next thing she knows, she's being detained, placed in handcuffs, and taken to a room for questioning. They take in her bag and start questioning her. Airport police officer: "Did you pack this bag yourself?" Lady: "Yes." Airport police: "So you know what's in the bag?" Lady: "Yes," and goes about describing what's in the bag. The questioning goes on for a while and is quite aggressive. The police officer then opens up the bag, and right on top of everything is this parcel filled with marijuana. She's aghast and protests her innocence and doesn't know anything about it. This poor lady is completely distraught. The gravity of it is hitting her, and she's inconsolable. Illicit substance trafficking anywhere is a big no-no, but in Middle Eastern countries, it can end up giving you the unaliving penalty. The officers reviewed the footage of when her bag was scanned, and when she placed her bag on the belt and turned away, a man standing right behind her in seconds undid the zip and slipped it in. She had no idea who this man was. So she was let go and free to continue traveling, but her trolley bag was confiscated as evidence. She wasn't too worried about the bag at that stage. I got her a very big brandy. Lesson to be learned is to not let your bags out of your sight, even for a second. I'm going to be flying soon, and the rest of this list is going to make me nervous, isn't it? I think it is. It's going to make me nervous, but got to read on. Story 3. I used to work on the ramp for UPS, and we had a couple incidents in my time. One of our small aircraft was on approach and had an issue with its hydraulics. The pilot turned off his automatic systems to fix the issue manually. With no warning to tell him otherwise, he landed the plane without landing gear. Told this story before, but we used to ship crates of bees in our system. A box broke loose mid-flight in a Beech 99. The pilot had to declare a state of emergency, take the plane as high as it could go to subdue the bees, and then land as quickly as he possibly could. We had an employee mangle his hand trying to attach a tow bar to the front wheel. Blood was fracking everywhere, and that hand was never the same. But the scariest might not be what happens at an airport, but who works at the airport ramp at 2 a.m. During my 3.5 years there, I worked with 3 separate unalivers or attempted unalivers. One guy got into an argument at a local college and shot someone in a classroom. Another beat his girlfriend's 3-year-old daughter to termination. He's currently on Arizona unaliving row. And most heart-wrenching for me, one of my friends, a dude who I was super cool with and I thought of as super nice, was involved in a robbery that went south. His partner ended up stabbing the woman they were trying to get money from. Then the two of them went on the run and his partner unalived him before unaliving himself. It was a dark time. I thought this last person was going to be talking about people who had previously gone through and served their time and had gotten this job, and that's what's scaring him. It's weird that all of these people went on to this kind of a dark path from working at this kind of job. Almost kind of makes you wonder how the guy telling the story is doing. Story 4. I got flagged for a random TSA pat-down, and the agent asked me if I had any metal in my body, to which I said, I have an IUD. The agent freaks out and starts flagging other agents over. She musters all her calm and says, please repeat that you have an IED on you, to which I had to say, no, an IUD, a copper intrauterine device for birth control. She didn't know what an IUD was. I bet she'll remember now. Not nearly as funny, but similar misunderstanding of IUD. Grandmother. You better start taking birth control if you don't want to get pregnant. Me. Well, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I got an IUD. Grandmother. Shakes head. Unbelievable. Drinking and driving. Story 5. Not me, but my father was regional manager of one of the rental car companies at the airport. And on 9/11, when all flights were grounded, everyone needed rental cars, and it was havoc. My father said the phone rang and he almost didn't answer because he was so busy. It turns out it was the company's CEO who ordered him to hand out keys for free. No cost, no documentation, as the situation was severe and all other major rental companies followed suit. Not necessarily strange, funny, or scary, but it is one of the few stories he told me about the job as a kid that I always remember. One of my uncles was in the air on 9/11. He said they made an emergency landing in Dallas, and while everyone else stopped to call their family, he sprinted for the rental car area and got one of the last ones.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.